Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. Name is Pieter Folkens. Peter spelled with an I. I'm a research biologist, former professor or assistant professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz, Division of Natural Sciences. And I'm a research biologist with the Alaska Whale Foundation. Work in Alaska, work in the ice, actually. Bay Area Plan and SB 375 are both rooted in AB 32. Principles of AB 32 have their origin in and are consistent with the results of the 1992 UN Earth Summit, including the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and Agenda 21 for Sustainable Development. And I trust everybody involved in this have read those documents. The premise of those documents was CO2 emissions causing disastrous global warming. The foundation science for that premise was a series of 6 emission scenarios and multiple predictive computer models that predicted a 1.5 degree centigrade increase in global average temperatures, an ice-free Arctic, and rising sea levels in 20 years. Here we are, 25 years since those models were first published. Direct observations show that the premise of everything since then is wrong. I notice you got a computer there. You can go on the internet right now and confirm what I'm going to tell you. The high Arctic mean temperatures so far this summer have been below the benchmark 65-year mean temperatures going back to the 1950s. Every day so far this summer has been below the mean. The average global temperature in March was a negative 1/10 of a degree centigrade below the 20th century benchmark. I might add there that Jim Hansen in 1988 in his testimony to Congress said that we would be 1.5 degrees centigrade warmer 20 years down the line. Here we are 25 years down the line, and we are below what it was back then when he did his testimony. Sea ice extent in Antarctica is 330,000 square kilometers greater than the average benchmark for the late 20th century. That is almost an area equal to the entire state of California, greater than what the average has been. So in other words, it is colder now than it was when this entire discussion about global warming began. Sea level. I don't know if you've looked at the sea level information. Matter of fact, regarding this process, I hope you look at the modern data to confirm whether the premise is correct. The last 2 years, the North Pacific sea level has fallen 11 millimeters. In order for it to reach the target levels of the SB 375, it would have to accelerate and maintain a sea level rise that's greater than has ever been measured before. Basic logic tells us that if the premise of an argument is incorrect, then there's a greater likelihood that everything that is based on that premise is also incorrect. Now, to the specific EIR scoping questions, I want to offer up a couple thoughts. First question, what potential environmental issues should be analyzed? I'd like you to analyze if those predictions made in the 1980s and 1990s have produced any level of confidence in their accuracy that they would predict. And in particular, I draw your attention to James Hansen's paper of 1987 that was his basis for his testimony to Congress in 1988, in which his predictions based on the 6 scenarios of emissions and what it would be 20, 25, 30 years down the line if he has had any iota of statistical accuracy. What alternatives should be evaluated, and should we test an entirely different alternative? I think something that is really necessary, I mean absolutely necessary in this, is what happens if we endure a cooling period of 2 degrees centigrade going the other directions. This is what was predicted in the 1970s by a group of climatologists out of the University of Florida. They said that we would have a warming period that would begin in the late 70s. It would persist to the late 1990s, and then we would turn into a protracted cooling period. This prediction was confirmed by the Russian Academy of Sciences in 2004, and they said we're looking at 35 years of a cooling period before it turns around and starts warming again. You look at all of the evidence, and I mean 100% of the evidence over the last decade, and that prediction that was made in the early 70s is the one that is proving to be true. We are heading towards a cooling period. I'd like you to evaluate, as part of the EIS, looking in the other direction. Instead of warming, you're looking at cooling. If we enter a cool phase, as predicted, and as is playing out in the observed data right now, what changes in agriculture would be needed to deal with an average global temperature that's 2 degrees cooler than it is now? How would the region respond to a substantial increase in migration to the area from people who cannot survive the winters in Canada, let's say? What is the impact of the cold and the crop failure? What if we have tremendous illegal immigration from all over the world coming to California because they're starving to death, one of the greatest motivators in the entire world? Ottmar Ebenhoff, who happens to be the lead chair of the IPCC Scientific Working Group, said just last year, he said that it isn't about the environment, it isn't about protecting the environment. It's about the redistribution of the world's resources de facto through climate change policy. Yeah. This situation we have right now is the premise of the argument for global warming is not playing out in the observed science. And it is now being revealed. The entire point of this is redistribution of wealth. It is progressive collectivism under the guise of protecting the environment. And so I encourage you, as part of your looking into this, that you actually read the 1992 documents that came out of the Rio Climate Summit. You look at what they were trying to do at Rio Plus 20, which just ended Friday, and you find out what this is really all about. It's not about reducing emissions. It's about progressive collectivism and getting everybody to follow the collective. That's the empirical evidence. Thank you very much for the opportunity.